السلام عليكم. لا تنسوا الإعجاب بالفيديو والاشتراك في القناة تشجيعا لنا لنستمر بنشر المزيد إن شاء الله.
Bible, yeah? The JPS that you've mentioned.
Yes.
Have you looked at how they've decided to put in and take out verses?
They haven't decided to put in or take out
No.
verses.
Have you looked at what manuscripts, Josh?
Yes.
Have you looked at what manuscripts they have decided to use when they are deciding this is what the Bible says and which they have decided to leave out? Have you looked at that?
The JPS is using the scrolls that we have always used.
Which ones?
Our Torah scrolls.
Which ones?
They don't have names. They're
Yes,
just
they
Torah
do have-
scrolls. We have a
listen.
scroll in every synagogue.
Listen, you're
We
not.
have the scrolls.
No, listen. Now that shows your ignorance on the topic. With all due respect, it's not just scrolls. They have names, and when they're deciding what to put in and take out of these Bible that you're holding in your hand, they choose manuscripts. So, for example, the Septuagint is a Greek document.
Yes, I know.
Okay,
The Alexa.
and that's actually one of the most high-level documents.
Not amongst us.
Pardon?
Not amongst us.
No, for the Old Testament. Yeah, for the Greek translation of the Old Testament. Yeah, but so what that must, yeah, it's Christian. It's true.
We don't believe that.
No problem, but that is another layer of problem, because why would you use a Greek? It's a Greek manuscript that they then have to
use it.
listen. They then have to translate it. Okay.
We don't use it.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. It's not you don't use it. That's not the case with all the Old Testament scholars in the world. Yeah, the Hebrews, even Jewish ones. You can't say that all Jewish.
All Orthodox Jews.
Are you sure you want to say all?
Absolutely.
Okay, fine.
Without a doubt.
Okay, no problem. So what do they use? Do they use the Masoretic text?
Do you know
Give me the names of the text.
The Masoretic text is just the name of what we call the Hebrew with the vowels and the punctuation. That's all it means.
No.
The difference between a Masoretic text and a regular Hebrew text is that one has vowels and the Talmud Hamikra and the other doesn't. That's the only
Let me ask you a
difference.
question. The Dead Sea Scrolls
Yes.
that were discovered in
Qumran.
in Nag Hammadi,
Yeah,
you know.
in heaven.
Now, can you establish to me
Yes.
that in all cases that the Masoretic text is superior to the Dead Sea Scrolls in every single instantiation or every single thing that it says?
That's not what I need to prove. Instead, what I need to prove is that we have a textus receptus, and if we want to say that it has not been preserved very well, or right, then we would see what we would be looking for in a text like the Dead Sea Scrolls is a text that generally accords to the theological implications of our text, but has like little differences here and there that would.
What text are you talking about?
Any theoretical text, be it
Give me a name.
Be it the Dead Sea Scrolls, be it the
what's the position?
Be it the Samaritan Pentateuch,
Yeah.
be it any of these types of things.
No, but what I'm saying is, do you reject the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Yes.
Wholeheartedly, fully?
Yes. And I'm
So
explaining
what
why.
do you accept?
I'm explaining why.
Yeah.
I'm explaining why.
Yeah.
If we are looking for an idea that our textus receptus has not been preserved very well, forgetting about the claim of corruption, because that's a different claim. If we talk about the claim of it just wasn't preserved very well and mistakes have happened, right, and small changes have been made over time because of lack of care, right, then what we would be looking for in scrolls like the Dead Sea Scrolls or the Samaritan Pentateuch is not differences theologically or differences in terms of the orthopraxy or the orthodoxy, right, either way, right. We'd be looking for the types of things that come from poor preservation. Not totally different ideas, but little mistakes here and there, or not even mistakes, little differences, right? Little differences in the narrative, little differences in that kind of thing. We don't actually find that. Instead, we find that the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Samaritan Pentateuch are differences in theology and differences in orthopraxy. We don't find differences in the details of stories.
So you are saying there are differences, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying is the differences are theological typical ones that we would expect from those particular
No, but
scrolls.
this is problematic.
We would not.
Pardon?
No, the Masoretic text.
Yeah.
Okay. If
Yeah.
if you go to any synagogue in the world, right? If you go to any synagogue in the world,
Any?
yes,
Even in the Reform ones?
even the Reform ones have this.
Okay, all right.
Any
Okay.
synagogue in the world,
Yeah.
and you see that they all have Torah scrolls, right? Now, a Torah scroll has the 5 books of Moses, the Pentateuch, and you'll see that it's just consonants, right? Like in the Arabic Quran, right? There's right. At least before they put in the diacritics and stuff, there were no dots and dashes, right? And so we don't have any of the vowels, none of the Tami Hamikra, which is kind of like a punctuation, a dual function, punctuation and cantillation. And what you'll find is that that is a Hebrew text which is not the same as the Masoretic text. What's the difference, right? That text is the Hebrew text without vowels. The Masoretic text is what I have here. It's where you put the vowels in. That's the only difference.
No, but here's the point.
What Ben Asher did when he made the Masoretic text was the first time you had a Torah where you could have the vowels.
And when did Ben Asher come into? When was he?
So he was in the 10th century. Exactly.
Right, that's the point.
Or the 9th century or something.
No, my question.
He put the vowels in.
Josh, have I let you speak?
Yes.
Now, from my understanding, and you can please correct me if I'm wrong. You've got, in terms of your documents, you've just said you basically just said you take the Masoretic text, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, no problem. I was asking you to mention that name. You didn't want to mention it for some reason. Okay, that's one. Number two, you've got other documents. For example, the Haggadah, and you've also got the Halacha, or things from the Talmud, basically the Palestinian Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all that stuff is very, very late. What connects that text, the Masoretic text, the scrolls that you're talking about in the synagogue, with Moses? Where's your chain of narration?
So the chain is as follows. Before I get to the chain, I need to say a preamble to the chain, because we have a set of rules as to how to write a Torah scroll, right? A set of rules, and it's very, very intricate, and there's a specific way that you're supposed to write it, and it has to be written.
And they were put by Ben Asher.
No, the rules were from long before that.
By whom?
Right?
Who established those rules?
So the earliest documentation, which does not mean that this is when they were established.
Yes.
The earliest documentation of the rules is found in the Tanaic period, right?
So what we're talking here?
So we're talking either the first, so somewhere in the first 2 centuries BCE or in the first 2 centuries CE.
No, wait, hold on.
That time.
You're saying first 2 centuries BCE.
Yes.
So, but wait, hold on. You're saying first 2 centuries BCE.
Yes.
What's the manuscript evidence of that?
So if you have a look in, for example, the Tosefta, right, which is actually a little bit after CE, right?
When?
Which is a little bit after CE.
And how much of it is? Yeah, go on.
So you'll find there very intricate rules with regards to writing of Sefer Torah. I'm pretty sure there are others from BCE, but I can't remember them off the top of my head.
When was Moses about?
I'm coming to it. Please.
No, I'm letting you speak.
You're asking me a very intricute question, a very complex question.
Bro,
and
Josh, you're the one.
More than a minute to answer.
Josh, listen, I'm not interrogating you. I'm giving you you're speaking more than I am.
Good, because you're asking the questions.
Yeah, inshallah. Okay, I'll let me finish.
When you ask a question, you should expect a detailed answer.
No, but before you get into something deep, I'm asking you, when was Moses?
Moses went on Sinai 3,334 years ago.
So put that in BCE terms.
But that's really just
make them do maths now.
1400 thereabouts.
Something like that. I'm sure you've done the maths.
Well, let's say 1,000.
Let's just say
something like that.
Right, no problem.
As I say, 3,334
how do you establish the gap in terms of your manuscripts in first, second century BCE to Moses in 1,400 BCE?
So this is what I'm coming to now.
Yes, please.
So so once we've said that around that time we already know that the rules for how to write the text, which if even one letter is different, then you have to throw the scroll out.
So you're talking about 1,400 years after Moses?
Yes. So we know that those rules were documented at that point. So the question then is, when were the rules established? Now, according to us, we will hold that that those rules are part of an oral tradition that we will say goes back to Moses. And now you'll ask for a chain of narration.
Please.
For this oral tradition.
Please.
So the oral tradition, we believe, was passed from Moses to his student Joshua and the 70 elders.
Okay.
Joshua then passed it down to Eleazar and to Othniel, the son of Kenaz.
Okay.
Othniel, the son of Kenaz, passed it down to his successor, who was Ehud, the son of Gera.
Okay.
He then passed it down to his successor, who was Shamgar, the son of Anath, who passed it down to Barak, the son of Avinoam, who lived at the time of Deborah, the prophetess.
Okay.
Then Barak
so what we're
passed it
talking
down
about
to-
300 years?
In terms of the number of years.
Yeah, but now you've gone about you've got 1,400
Yes,
years
I
to
know.
make up.
I know, I'm going through all the names.
Wait, hold on. Giving me names without giving me evidence of these people's existences, or some kind of these people lived in this area, these people had this occupation, is useless. All you're doing now is, for all we know, you could be fabricating these names. What you're trying to do, and Josh, I'll be honest with you, right? It's a contrived and I'm not going to use a strong term, but it's a contrived attempt to try and emulate the Islamic sciences, where there's no chance you can. Let me tell you why. We don't just mention names. When we say the Prophet sent it down to this person, that person, we know that these people existed. We know where they existed. We know what geography they existed in. We know what kind of life they had. We know the biographies that they had, and we have historical information about them. Now, every single name that you've mentioned is exactly that. Are just names.
Right,
now,
so I'll give you information about them.
No, we don't
Longer.
have the time to sit here and go for 1,000. You're talking about 1,400 year gap of names between Moses and when you're saying that the rules were established. And let me just be straightforward with you, yeah. And to be honest, I've read works from prominent scholars of Judaism like Jacob Neusner. Okay. You don't know him?
I've heard of him.
Well, he's actually one of the most published men on earth. He's got a record. He's published like 1,000 books. Yeah. You should know him. You should know him. No, he's a big name. He is a big name. Yeah. And what you're doing here is it's a slapdash academic attempt to try and fill up a hole which cannot be filled. It cannot be filled, and it has not been. No scholar in academia takes this seriously.
Of course not, because the academics do not believe in the Bible at all.
No,
they don't believe in the Quran either. They haven't got to that yet.
The conversations must be different. The reason why the conversations must be different is this. When we're talking about our manuscripts, we're talking about what, 30 years after Uthman? When we're talking about the people on our chains, we're talking about what? We're talking about people who we've got not only manuscript evidence for, but we have cross-referential data about. You simply don't have that data. You're not giving us any confidence that the 1,400 year gap that you've just described here can in any way, shape or form be filled up with anything other than blind faith and listening to your elders. That's the truth, Joshua. Now, if a person from another religion, a Hindu, did the same thing with you and gave you names of figures that might be fictitious, might not have even existed, there's no manuscript evidence of their existence, there's no cross-referencing where they lived, there's nothing, then you would not accept that and you'd say this is not good enough evidence.
No, because that's not what I would be looking for. What I look for when it comes to a religion, whether or not they're based on any truth, is the revelation narrative, right? If you're making a claim about the way revelation took place to start with, and all you've got is one guy spoke to a talking fish, right? That's all you've got. So you have one guy who claims to be God, or one guy who claims an angel spoke to him.
Right. So that's where we go back to our point.
But we have
Josh.
We have an entire nation of people claiming a mass national revelation in a mountain.
Excellent, Josh. I don't
no other religion
listen.
has.
We accept that. Okay, we believe in that, and we're not saying everything you hold in your hand is wrong or fabricated or ahistorical. We're saying that if you want us to believe every vowel, every letter, every story, and with this many conflicting manuscripts, with this much gap that you have, it's unreasonable for us to believe in that. But what I will say is this. This is why you should not be totally confident in the book that you hold in your hand. And I will say this. We said that because we went on a tangent here, Josh. We said that there are 3 conditions that disqualify a prophet. And you just said it yourself now. One of them is, what kind of prophet are we talking about? And what kind of God is he calling to? We can't deny that the Prophet Muhammad and the Quran both talk specifically about Moses, talk specifically about him receiving the revelation, talk specifically about the God of Moses, literally the God of Moses. Okay, and that is the God we believe in. Now what we're saying is, already, number one, we're not asking you to be disloyal to God. Number 2, we're not asking you to believe in another God. And number 3 here, the third point, which was talked about in Deuteronomy 18:21, is that the prophecies that this prophet came with are in fact had materialized. So I'll give you 5 examples, Josh, because I was meant to be doing this in the beginning.
Sure.
Okay? For example, in the Quran it states that the Romans had been defeated in a nearby lowland, and that in 3 to 9 years that they will become victorious. Okay? Now this materialized. It's very specific, and it materialized. The Quran states that the Muslims will be victorious and that they will enter Mecca محلقين رؤوسهم مقصرين لا يخافون أو لا تخافون علما ما لا تعلمون, that they will go in and they will be cutting their hair and they will be shaving it and they will have no fear, meaning there will be no fighting. So the Quran predicts that the Muslims will be victorious against the pagans and that they will not be fighting, and that's exactly what happened. It was a conquest which meant that the Muslims could freely go and do Hajj, which happened, Umrah or Hajj or whatever, pilgrimage. Number 2. Number 3, and this relates to the Palestine issue. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "أعدد ستا بين يدي الساعة موتي ثم فتح بيت المقدس." He said, count 6 things before the day of judgment: my death and then the conquest of Jerusalem. And we know historically, without a shadow of a doubt, that Islam conquered Jerusalem.
Of course.
Of course. So these are things, I'm giving you some examples, but Islam, the fact that the Prophet, he predicted where Islam was going to go. He did so in a situation of weakness. One time he was being attacked by all places. إِذْ جَاءُكُم مِّن فَوْقِكُم مِّنْ أَسْفَلَ مِنْكُم. You know, when they came from above and below, from the city and all this kind of place, and that your visions were blurred. وَبَلَغَتِ الْقُلُوبُ الْحَنَاجِرُ وَتَظُنُّونَ بِاللَّهِ الظُّنُونَ. And that, you know, the hearts went, at that time, okay, the Prophet made a prediction. There was a rock, he knocked it one time. He said, Futihat Rum, that the Roman Empire has been conquered. And then again, Futiha Faris, that the Persian Empire has been conquered. And then he said, Futiha al-Yaman. And then after that, he said, Yemen will be conquered. Imagine in a state of bleak weakness, a situation where it's totally bleak and total weakness, where he was so hungry, the Prophet, that he had to tie a rock to his stomach, and that they were fighting him from everywhere, that he predicted that he would take over the major empires of the world. So amazing was this, that even historians like Barnaby Rogerson, he said the fact that the Arabs had conquered the Roman and Persian Empire, it's like Eskimos conquering America and Russia. It's something which is miraculous by all standards. So these are some examples of things that the Prophet told us, even things which relate to today, that there will be the Arab, the barefooted Arab, يَتَطَاوَلُونَ فِي الْبُنْيَانِ, that they will be competing for the high buildings. These are things which the Bible tells us. Imagine if you make all of these predictions and you get them wrong. That when the Prophet made predictions of the future, he made predictions which astonishingly, even though the probability of them coming true were very low, did come true. Where Islam would spread, where Islam would go, even where the fighting would happen, what would happen in the future. You know, the greening of the Arabian Peninsula, that the Arabian Peninsula will become green after it has become barren. even things relating to climate change and the ecological environment. This is too much. Even sexually transmitted diseases, bro. Can you imagine there's a hadith that says that fornication will become so widespread that there will be diseases لم تكن موجودة من قبل, that it was not even there. The invention of new sexually transmitted diseases, not just the proliferation of sexually transmitted diseases. These things are specific to the Quran and the Sunnah. These are prophecies of the future, and they, would you agree with me, yeah, they put the Prophet, at least from your perspective, a biblical perspective, yeah, in serious contention for prophethood. Would you agree with that?
In serious contention, from a biblical perspective, I would have to concede yes.
Exactly. Now remember, if this is the case, because he came telling us to believe in the God of Moses. He didn't tell us to be disloyal to God. In fact, the fact is, the cardinal sin in Islam is that if you worship anything other than God. We're saying that the purpose of life is to worship one God only. That's the purpose of life. But the thing is this, we say that Prophet also came with something. The Quran states, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَةً لِلنَّاسِ. We have not sent you except for all of humanity. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have not sent you except for a mercy of humankind. So the fact is, we believe that there was a transition after Moses, and the transition meant for a prophet this time who would come and who would be for all of humanity. Now you've conceded that he is, at least according to your biblical criterion, okay, that he would have to be in serious contention.
Yes.
إذا أعجبك الفيديو لا تنسى الإعجاب والتعليق، ولكي يصلك كل جديد اشترك الآن.